I'm tempted actually to try putting 12 volts on it just to see what happens. Let's do that. Okay, I can switch this on separately. So if I hold on to it, I'm going to switch it on now. Nothing. Okay. It's not drawing any current either. So I might assume that some wires come off inside, or it's not. Yeah, it's 12 volts. It's not drawing any current. So I'm guessing that might be why someone disconnected it originally. You can see 50 years of being under a car doesn't do this any favours, and I'm not sure how well sealed the cable entry is. You know, bizarrely, I guess this is the only way they could do it, but this cable, or these two wires, come from under the seat. So this is above the seat. They come out under the car into the motor under the car, which is just going to be a point where water and all sorts can get in. So not the best thing, but I guess that's all. I'm assuming that was the only heater unit that Rover could get under the rear seat. And I think I said in the previous video, I think the rear heater came in the Mark III, which I think was 65 or 66 model year, I think, the Mark III P5, so it wasn't designed to be there from the start. So I guess it was a matter of fitting finding a unit that would just fit as well as possible. So that's going to need a bit of cleaning up, and no idea how to get into that. Are those screws or something under there? Rivet? Maybe it's riveted together. I'm gonna have to do some excavating, I think. It's so thick, this underseal. Oh, look at that, shiny metal under all of that crap. Well, so it is riveted by the look of it, so I have to drill the rivets out as well. I have to figure out how to get that. If anyone's got any idea how to get that off, as I say, it doesn't look threaded. I have to do some. I know the front fan had, I think it had like a metal clip that just held it on from memory, but this is a brass nut. I mean, it looks as though that looks like a nut, but I can't see a thread. But I mean, the fan itself is in pretty good order. I can't feel any. I mean, I would imagine this barely got any use through the whole life of the car. I can't feel any movement at all in the bearings. So unless it's absolutely done in by water having got in or something like that, hopefully it's going to be restorable, but we'll see. I'll figure out how to get it apart first. So I've just had a bit of a look on the web, and I could only find one site that talked about removing a fan, the metal fan. A lot of these Smiths motors have plastic fan. The front fan unit is plastic. This is metal, and as I say, I couldn't see. There's no thread on this rod, so I couldn't figure out what that was. But it seems it is just a nut. Yeah, so it's only partially threaded for some reason at the bottom. So very simple. That just comes off, and then this should, with a bit of persuasion, slide off as well. Oh, okay, so it's kind of like a split collar. Weird. I'll try and pull this evenly. There you go. So yeah, the fan's in pretty good, or very good condition. Barely any rust on it, but it's got this like split thread that the nut kind of almost like a drill collet. I think the nut, yeah, that's tapered inside, so it closes that up on the shaft. So just a friction fit on a round shaft. All right, it's useful to know. So there's the motor. Pretty standard Smiths motor, I think. There's no sideways play. There's a little bit of end float, but that's nothing excessive. So it's just a standard motor in this outer, riveted to this outer housing. Is it riveted? Yeah, they're rivets. I'm just going to clean up. There's, if you can see that, it says 12 volt Smiths on it. It's actually printed. Yeah, there's an arrow as well showing the direction of rotation. So I'm just going to clean that up just to have a look what's under there. As I've said before, the motor spins really nicely, or pretty nicely anyway, and there's no movement in at all. I can't feel any movement in those bushes, so I'm assuming it probably hasn't been used a lot. You know, the rear heater. How often would you put the rear heater on, especially in the coupe where the rear seat, you know, the rear headroom is a bit more limited? There were more kind of owner driver cars, I think, that, you know, if you were a kind of captain of industry and you wanted one of these cars, you would probably, and you wanted to be chauffeured around, you wouldn't have the coupe, you'd have the saloon. So, you know, rear heater in a coupe, I would imagine, was used very infrequently, but we shall see. I think the main problem is just going to be dirt and water having got into it, but we'll see. Maybe pleasantly surprised. You know, I'm just going to see if I can get some white spirit and just clean that up, just have a look at what the printing says, and then we'll get into opening it. So I can't really clean it up any more than that. I'm not sure how much of that you can see. It just says 12 volt Smiths. I don't know if that says 368. It's really impossible to see. It's printed onto the black paint. Might be 368. There's an arrow pointing that way. So that's that. So the motor, as we look at the motor, it's spinning anti-clockwise. Yeah. So 12 volt Smiths. Can't see anything else on there. 3. No, I don't think that is 368. I don't know. I might look in the. I'll look in the Smith's part book. Anyway, let's get in there and have a look at what that is. What do we need? Oh no, I think that's it, yeah. I'm just interested to see what sort of condition this is in. Because I'll be surprised. I think the heater unit itself in the rear had been opened. I'll be amazed if this has been opened since 1968 when the car was built. Maybe we're going to have to drill. Let's just... Well, judging by those that are inside the motor, those bolts, they're pretty rusty. Oops. Okay. I thought maybe this bit would come out, but maybe I don't know. That's not moving at all. Right, I think we're going to have to drill those out. Hang on a minute. Okay, let's see how we go. So good. Okay, so that's just an aluminium rivet, my guess. That's yeah, that is a rubber kind of grommet. It's the front one is mounted on it's probably the same motor, mounted in 3 places on rubber grommets. So it looks like this is the same. I think it's just to stop vibration through the body work. Yeah. So I'm using a 5mm drill. That rivet's pretty much corroded to nothing. Ah. Oh, oh, okay. So the end cap. Oh, I see. Ah, okay. So the motor is completely separate to that. Right, let's go in. Oh, actually, doesn't look that bad. So where? Okay. So the how well you can see that. Hang on, I'm just going to move the camera a bit. So you can see that. Oops. Okay. The brushes are down there. That one's just popped out. You can see that one. That looks remarkably good for the age of this thing. I thought it would be much rustier than that. Question is, how the heck do you get to those brushes? I may do some googling, but I mean there's surface rust, but I imagined it would be absolutely full of rust. I mean the only well, that's just relying on that seal. I mean I think it was covered in underseal from the factory, but that's just relying on that seal, and then there's just a grommet for the cable to go through. That's incredible that's lasted or sealed it so well. And then these are actually, I mean they've hardened now, but they are rubber kind of grommets that the motor sits in just to insulate vibration. And again, I mean the commutator is not worn. There's no step. It's a bit dirty. It's surprisingly black. It's not too bad there, but around here it's very black. But the windings look good. I can't see any heat. They're lacquered. I can't see any heat build up on the windings. Can't see any breakages. There's no visible breakages here. What they tend to do nowadays on motors is put like a resin or something, because this is quite often where these windings break, where they attach to the commutator. But there's none of that on this. I mean, it's a 50-year-old thing. Well, that is I'm always being surprised by things. I mean, that is just much better than I imagined it would be, but it's also a mystery as to how. It looks as though they should pull out, but I'm not sure they're going to want to. Yeah, gonna have to do some investigating. Well, there you go. Anyway, so better than I thought. Hopefully savable. well, it wasn't working anyway, so I'm not going to make it any worse, but I did rebuild the front fan motor and that worked fine afterwards. So I want to do the same to this. I just realised I've been a bit dumb. This motor, so I was thinking that this pulled out the iron, the windings pulled out, but what I've just realised is this end cap is separate. So this actually comes off. I was thinking this was all one piece, the flange and the end cap, but this is separate. So this should, well, this is coming off. Interesting. Alright. This is the remnants of the gasket, and we've got a lot of springs. So we've got those are the brushes, and there's a spring in there, so those springs are for the brushes, the soft springs. So those posts I think were in there as spacers for the screws. I wonder what these screws were. Maybe they so it's just a paper insulator. They are sprung washers. That looks like a shim washer. So I think maybe what I'm thinking is these I'm just trying to figure this out now. So I think these screws came through here. Yeah, so there's markings for as a washer there, so those washers must have been there, and then were those springs there to space that from the end, I think. Turn the heater down, I'm getting roasted. I think probably those springs then sit against the end cap to keep this, to keep the brush assembly in place, because otherwise there'd be nothing holding the brushes off the end. I think that is how it went. we shall see when we put it back together. So that was through there like that. The brushes, and I'm not sure how long they were originally, but they're not. Let's just put a spring in. I was interested to see how long the brushes are. So they seem to stick in there. So the motor would be coming through like that. A bit sticky. But considering this has been under the car for 50 years, I mean there's rust, but it doesn't look terrible. So what I need to do is start getting this cleaned up. There's a shim as well. Yeah, they have like a phosphor bronze bearing that's in a kind of cage, and it's a spherical bearing, so it can kind of move slightly as the motor, you know, if the end cap isn't exactly at 90 degrees to the main shaft, that can accommodate that. Well, it seems fairly standard on these motors. I've not seen it on any other motors, but anyway. So the phosphor bronze oilite bearings, I assume they are, look in good condition. Yeah, this just needs, there's a foam gasket on the side of the brushes, which is disintegrated, and then these are actually like grommets, but they've hardened so much they won't come out, so I'll just have to replace them. And the windings, the fill windings don't look blackened or anything, they don't look overheated or anything like that, so that's good. So I think I'm going to have to give this a good clean. I think though that should run once it's save that. So, yeah, it should run once it's cleaned up, I would think. Little grommet has just got two holes for one for each wire. And that's again that's the bit that sits under the car, so that is the only thing stopping water getting in. I think it was all sprayed with underseal in the factory to seal everything basically, and it's done a pretty good job. There's some damage, water damage, but not a lot. Okay, there you go. As I say, I thought this was, which one was it? This cap was part of all one piece, so I couldn't see how to get that out. Actually, that just pulls off. Interesting. Yeah, and then it's held together with the bolts that run through it, the two bolts. Okay,